Hello and welcome to another episode of the Opportunity Podcast. Today, I am speaking with Steven Schneider, one of the co-founders over at Trio SEO and the CEO. Trio SEO, they are a newish agency. They've been around for a little bit over a year, and they target companies that are between $500,000 to $25 million in their range. Now, they're relatively new on their journey, so I talk a bit about the organization, the structure, but they're not new to entrepreneurship. In fact, Steven has quite a cool past where he managed over 40 sites, like 40 affiliate sites that were doing some pretty big numbers. And his business partners have also done pretty well. In fact, one of his business partners is Nathan Hirsch. I think him and the other business partner also were partnered on FreeUp. And we actually interviewed Nathan a while back on the Opportunity Podcast talking all about FreeUp. So now he's into the SEO agency game with Steven. So Steven, really cool conversation, great guy. I think you guys will get a lot of benefit out of this, especially on the idea of simplifying SEO. Like you don't need to go that complex if you're building a real brand. And that's the key thing that Steve and I talked about, like how much easier SEO can be if you are building a real brand. So with that said, I'll stop picking off my box and get you guys into the episode. See you on the other side. All right. I have Steven Schneider with me, one of the co-founders of Trio SEO. Welcome to the podcast, my friend. For everyone that doesn't know who you are, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Excited to be here. Yeah, like you said, I co-founder, also CEO of Trio SEO. We are a blog writing agency, and yeah, we focus on high intent, bottom of funnel content, primarily blog stuff. That's kind of where my background is, along with Connor and Nate's SEO background. And yeah, we just have a kind of a random background. We're entrepreneurs first, and now this is kind of our first stab at taking all of our lessons and learnings and experience and kind of applying them toward an agency focused front where we get to work with clients and help apply the basic principles. So having a lot of fun. We're over a year into this journey, and yeah, just meeting a lot of great people, great results with clients, and it's been a great run so far.
No, that's all. And you have an interesting entrepreneurial journey as well, which we'll get into more of the nuances, but maybe give me just the quick elevator pitch of like, how did you get into this weird and wonderful world of internet marketing?
Yeah, wow. So I mean, from like the Trio SEO perspective, I was just coming out of a kind of a weird time with leaving my last company, the first one I built, and then I went into like the 9 to 5 real world kind of job environment. And that didn't last at all. It lasted like 6 months, and I quit on the spot and was like, I will literally do anything to make money online aside from going into the office every day. So just started networking, really went hard on LinkedIn, creating a lot of content, and then randomly met Connor Gillivan, Nathan Hirsch, my now partners. And just after like 5 or 6 months of casual talk, texting, networking, we're like, hey, I think there's something there. And it's like, why don't you guys have an SEO agency? Like, this is such a natural fit within your brand and your kind of portfolio of businesses. And they're like, oh no, we have it all mapped out. Like we have like a 20-page document. We just don't have like an operator. And I was like, you met the guy with two thumbs and kind of just like poured.
Yeah, one more pair of thumbs for it to be Trio, right? Like, it writes itself.
So yeah, I just like itched myself and was like, this is pretty much an exact replica of my last company. I can build this thing in like 30 days if you guys can bring in some beta clients. And they're like, yeah, that's easy. Well, let's just find a couple people. And yeah, they had some beta clients and we built the business, and some of those beta clients are still with us today after a year. And it's just been a fun kind of ride figuring it all out and just kind of like rinse and repeat the process. So
I like that you went into the quote unquote real world of being an employee. I always joke that the number one creator of successful entrepreneurs are bad bosses.
oh my God,
It's like
reach.
such a commonality.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Yeah, that was my case too.
Yeah. So I mean, you've been involved in SEO for many years, and this is a loaded question because like my background is also SEO a bit as well. But how have you seen the industry change over the years?
I think just the quality is the biggest thing, like especially content wise. That's kind of where my background lives, kind of being in the affiliate space in college and knowing that you could pretty much post any blog and it would rank in the first page within like some time frame of sorts. And that's just not the case today. Like it has to be so dialed in. You have to have all the eat signals. You have to have backlinks. You have to like really know your stuff. And that's kind of like where the best survive. And then you kind of couple that with everyone who's trying to leverage AI and kind of cut corners, and you're like, oh yeah, that's not working. I wonder why. You kind of just have to keep making sure that like everything outside of quality doesn't matter. Like quality, user experience, and doing everything by the book is kind of like the name of the game. So
Man, I remember back in the day, I bought my very first like scammy internet marketing product I bought to like teach me how to do it right. Just had me post on Easy articles, which it doesn't really exist anymore. And I just spammed it with SE Nuke with backlinks to this little
nice.
400 word article I wrote. And like, this is all a scam. None of this works. And then I woke up to like, I think it was like a $500 affiliate check in like less than
Nice.
a week. I think it might have been even the next day. I thought it was spam because the affiliate checks like you got money in your inbox, right? Like, holy crap, this works. Never looked back since.
Yeah, no, I feel the same kind of path is what kind of got me hooked in SEO. Like we bought a pretty spammy, looking back on it, black hat, not safe for work blog, and built it
Classic
into
SEO move.
yeah, and built it into a not safe for work affiliate blog, and it crushed because of all the spammy backlinks attached to it. And the wave was short lived, but just long enough to like get a taste of like how much money was in the game. And I was like, yeah, this is the thing for me.
So, speaking of that, your affiliate background, this is pretty interesting. So, you had a portfolio of like what 40 affiliate sites, you scaled it to 400 articles a month, and that eventually led to seven figures. So, was this during those kind of like spammy backlink days, or walk me a little bit through the story of that portfolio?
Yeah. So kind of started in college. I was, like I said, thinking on that finance, didn't really have a path journey. And my friend and kind of mentor, whatever, kind of was like, hey, like I have this business on the side. And I was like, yeah, right. Like, what business do you have? Like thinking it's probably like, some small thing. And no, he was like already kind of in the affiliate game, building these blogs and, was making upwards of over 10K a month doing this through a couple sites. And I was like, well, if you're doing this, I can definitely do this. Like, teach me everything you know. And so, yeah, he just like would give me, like some random article about what is SEO. And then I'm like, okay, what's next? And he gave me like access to like authority hackers course. And I did that. And then like, it was just like one little thing after another. And then he's like, hey, here's this domain. I didn't even know I still have it. It was like a barbecue affiliate Amazon site. And I just like use that as kind of my playground to figure out how to write articles, how to upload them, how to use Elementor, how to like learn the basics of site structure, just like the things you need to know and fail on your first site before you can like do it, with experience. So we kind of had that, and then that site started making money, like a couple $100 in college. While we were still in class, we bought that. It was a adult product review site. We bought that, scaled that up. It was making a couple of grand per month. He already had a portfolio with his other partner, and they were at that time making probably like 20K a month once they had grown. And then that was like around the time that we graduated. And he's like, well, let's just like do this full time. And I'm like, sure, like this is great. Like that sounds amazing. So we kind of joined forces with the first trio, I guess, the two of them plus me,
Free tree.
pre trio. And we just kind of went on like a crazy run of we would build sites. We built like probably 1 month on the side, just kind of like testing different niches and just putting content out, seeing what worked. He and I probably had like 5 or 6 sites together that we kind of merged in. They had like 3 or 4 we merged in. And then thanks to Empire Flippers, we also bought a lot of sites through that journey. And then we also did a
There it is.
ton of,
There
I
it is.
know, that's full circle. And we also just did a bunch of cold outreach, kind of like those postcards. It's like, ever considered selling your house? It's like, ever considered selling your website for 3 grand? And they're like, here it is. Like it's just like such an easy vibe and no one knows what they're doing. So yeah, long story short, that was it. We scaled. We had about 40 websites in our kind of total portfolio at the time. We were doing about 300 to 400 articles a month at the peak. And then yeah, kind of grew that to like a 7 figure range. So a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a very good friend. We sold his business. I think it was like, I think we sold it for 700K. And the
Nice.
affiliate site, how we built it was pretty much very similar to what you're saying. You would just like find the hobby bloggers at the time, buy their site, merge like all 301 it, right? And gets all this free content and
Yep.
backlinks. He was like, this is the cheapest website I've ever
It's
built.
crazy. Yeah.
Like made way more money because the cost is so low, right? Just by giving some passionate person who gave up on the site like 2, 5 grand. So
Yep.
smart
Yeah,
move.
that was pretty much it. Like we would just scout evergreen topics and figure out what already had a bunch of informational content, because our game was just going to throw affiliate content on it. So to have that balance, it's just like easy, pick it up, dump a bunch of content on it, wait 6-9 months, average it out, flip it. So much fun.
So is that what you did with the site, the portfolio sites? You flipped them all, or what ended up happening with them?
So it kind of depends on the site. Yeah, we flipped some of them. That's kind of like the game was to like buy, build, sell. And
Mhm.
then some of them were just kind of cash flow for the actual business itself. I think my partners still have a handful of them kind of in their back pocket, just as like things they would never really want to get rid of. And then some of them just fizzled out, like things that we tested and niches were bad. We didn't surprisingly build any backlinks through that entire time. Like this was like
Wow.
pre needing to build backlinks era. So some of them just through the journey of SEO and like that shift toward high quality content and backlinks, like just things stopped ranking organically and kind of naturally. Yeah, it kind of was like a natural evolution of kind of like where things kind of went with the industry and kind of that game.
Yeah, and I think the affiliates are feeling the 2.0 version of that here in the last couple of years, last year and a half.
Rough.
Mentioned our friends over at Authority Hacker. A sad day, like about a month ago now, they closed down their course, and my other good buddy Diggity just closed down the affiliate
Yeah.
lab. So the affiliate game has gotten a lot harder, which
Yeah.
I guess kind of transitions into. I don't know if this played part of your transition, but like, what was your transition from like being this affiliate guy to like, you know what? I'm going to go get a job for a bit, then quit because that sucks. And now I'm going and start an SEO agency with a couple cool people I met. Like, what was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, so that was kind of a fun ride too. So right about like around our peak, like we just had like some of our best months, like we were on top of the world. We got hit with 3 Black Swan events within 30 days, which was really fun. So we had the
Amazing.
the original Amazon, or not, the original Google product review update that hit in like 2019. So specifically targeting our sites. That wasn't so bad. It was kind of a mixture just because we had such a balanced portfolio. Like obviously some go up, some go down. That was great. Amazon in that same time span cut their commission tier rates again. So that was like a 60% loss to the entire, it wasn't strictly all Amazon, but like that definitely hurt. And then COVID was that same kind of run, which just shook the entire economy no matter what. So like, yeah, we just saw, like, we knew that the affiliate game was not going to be a forever thing. And we were kind of testing e-commerce sites and using affiliates to drive traffic to our own e-commerce products. And that was working really well. So we were kind of like trying to like front run that, but we knew it wasn't going to be like an overnight thing. We probably had like a 5-10 year runway left. And it was just like, no, you have 30 days to figure this out. We're like, okay, great. So yeah, it was just kind of like expedited that rate. And, just kind of like the business definitely, that was kind of like the sobering moment where I was like, yeah, this isn't like a forever thing. Like I got to figure it out. And like the business of game just changed so much by then. And so like I kind of left on good terms. Like I still golf like weekly with one of my best friends, like partners, and it just was like kind of that next step. And I took a full year off and just kind of was like figuring out what to do, tested a lot of different things, nothing worked. And then I kind of was like ready to start that next chapter. And it kind of just seemed like the natural transition was like get a job with benefits and a high paying salary. And I just hated every single second of it. And that lasted, like I said, like 6 months. And I was like, I'll figure something out. Like I told my wife, I'm like, I can't do this. And she's like, I hate seeing you like this. Like you are so different. Like you need to figure something out. Like do anything different. And I was like, thank you for the support. Like that's great.
Yeah, I feel you. I always, employees are great. Obviously, entrepreneurs, you need employees to grow a business typically. But yeah, I almost feel like it's more fun working like 12 hours on kind of like a thing you feel like it's your
Yeah.
own project, right? And you get less burnt out than even working like 3 hours. It's kind of like filling out the tax thing. It takes like 5 minutes to do, but really takes like 3 days because you're thinking about it.
So true.
you know?
I have mine as like an unread email right now, just like waiting for me to do.
It's just, you get this red notification. It's so easy to take care of, but you just don't do it.
No.
So I feel your pain there. So talk to me a bit, like you start the agency. I'm assuming you guys started it kind of from scratch, other than that like 20-page business plan. But you guys have kind of honed in on a certain target with your agency. I believe you're targeting businesses making between like half a mil to 25 million in terms of revenue. That seems like a pretty
Mm-hmm.
big bracket. So what's going on there?
I mean, full transparency is like we didn't really know what the agency world looked like. We came into this with so many unknowns that we kind of just had to figure out testing wise, like we were back at square one. Like this was a fresh business for all of us. Connor and Nate were coming off of their sale with FreeUp and that exit. And so they were obviously in a complete different landscape with being invested in that kind of industry. Similar to me, I was in a completely different game. And so it was kind of like, let's cast a wide net. We know that our service is like around 3K per month for our minimum. So we don't want businesses that are startups. We don't want businesses that are, mom and pop small businesses that are going to be like really fretting over a 3K investment. So we have to have like some minimum. And then if we look at the upper tier max, it's like, could we land enterprise clients? Could we try and land these clients that are in that upper echelon to see what that relationship looks like? And so it's like, yeah, that is a wide range, but we're also not specializing in a certain industry. We're not doing anything like we're letting our own teams due diligence through our discovery audit phase really pinpoint who we want to work with. And we're pretty picky with who we take on as a client for that reason. And so like, yeah, long answer short, it's like wide range, but there's a lot of other checks and balances that go in to really kind of narrow that funnel.
That makes sense. That is good advice for anyone listening who wants to start their own agency. You shouldn't work with companies that have no revenue to
Yeah.
really invest in marketing. Like ideally they should already be investing in marketing. You're kind of like the fuel to the fire, right? Do you guys have a specific like target you're going after? With after Free Up, they started the bookkeeping companies and that was targeted towards agency owners and e-commerce owners. So are you targeting like specific business models in that revenue range, or really it's just like anyone within this range?
Yeah, we're kind of, I mean, it's more from the other side of like what we don't want to work with compared to who we really want to work with. So like just anybody who knows SEO, like anything in the your money, your lifestyle niches are going to be inherently more difficult. So like we try to steer away from that sort of stuff and really try to hone in on like B2B SaaS or just like B2B services that allow us to like look at a content strategy and know like, yes, this makes sense. And there's going to be a clear win-win relationship over the next 6 months. I think just kind of with my affiliate background, even if I haven't built a site, like I've probably done keyword research in like a niche at some point. So I can like look at a certain client and be like, this is probably a 30-day runway with this client because they have 5 topics that are like really great. And it's like we look at a different one and they're like, oh, there's 400 topics over on this side. Like let's steer in that direction instead. And so that's kind of part of that due diligence discovery audit process where like we do our own homework from the start, and that kind of at least says like yay or nay to see where that path is going, but we haven't really like pinpointed like let's only go after this to see yet.
Yeah, the classic way to know you're an SEO is you go into Ahrefs and you just have so many random niches in there. Like you might not even have a website, but you're just curious, like what's going on in this market.
So true. Yeah.
So with your SEO agency, it sounds like you guys are heavy on the content side, right? So like, are you focusing almost exclusively on content? Or are you doing like the whole thing, like backlinks, technical SEO, all that kind of stuff?
So the entire first year was just content, and that was deliberate. It was like no distractions, cut out the carrot on the stick sort of stuff, and just get really good at content. Like we already had that pretty dialed in from both of our kind of experience side of things, but like I said, the agency world of dealing with clients and the relationships and the check-ins and the systems there, that was what we wanted to figure out before you start tacking in all these other things. Because it's like agencies who are full service SEO with backlinks or insert anything else here, those are mentally entirely different businesses and how they're treated and operated and serviced. And so like we just do content, but now that we kind of have that system really developed and matured, we're starting to pull in different partners to kind of alleviate that and already have that experience so that we don't have to like relearn an entire outreach process for backlinks and then like have to figure out that's a whole business itself or technical SEO. It's like we'll just pull in these people who already have figured it out and done it and trust that they can kind of help us fill in the blanks.
So that's interesting. Is that like a vendor relationship for you, or are you actually like bringing them in as employees to develop that internally?
More of like a white label arrangement. So like we would build a
Like,
package based on what we see as a need. So like right now, like we have a really strong backend partner, and if a client comes in and like, hey, like this is definitely going to be a situation where like we need links to survive, or some clients are just like, I don't care about that. Like, maybe they already have like a DR60 site. We can kind of
mhm.
pinpoint and choose whether it makes sense to bring in that partner, and then we'll just build a package to encompass that entire kind of journey.
Okay. Yeah. With white labeling, I know a lot of my agency owner friends, they would love to white label like some aspect of their business, right? The issue they run into or tend to run into is how do I trust this white label person that they're actually going to do, like a good job, which is also the same problem a lot of entrepreneurs have with hiring agencies in general. So it's kind of ironic, like the agency back and forth. So when you're selecting these white label partners, like how are you vetting them? Like, yes, this is like I feel good about this one. I have high confidence that this guy can do what he's saying.
Work really slow in the beginning before you even like sign them on to work on a project. Like interview the hell out of them, talk to as many possible people who have worked with them. Like, if we're working with a backend partner, which is like so touchy in SEO, like we'll go and talk to physically jump on a call with a couple of the past clients and like talk to them through and see like what was their relationship like how did that go for them, look at the site, see what that's like, and then just obviously do one small experience and kind of see like how that goes, like what's their communication like. And it's kind of similar to how just like if you're hiring an employee, like you don't want to hire someone overnight and get them onboarded in 30 like in 3 hours and then dump a bunch of work on them. It's like let's ease into it, see how it goes, and if it works we'll kind of like slowly scale from there. It's always easier to reel it back in than it is to like load up a new agency with 10 clients and you're like, oh crap, we just committed to 10 clients, like these suck. So you kind of have to, we work slow and that's kind of okay. Like we are fine taking the kind of slower, more patient path to know that it's going to be worth it in the end and have better results.
Yeah, that makes sense. With a test, like give me an example of like what you would do for a small test. Like I'll pay you to write these like 10 articles or something like that. Like what kind of test do you usually give them?
So for content writers and like our writers that come on the team, like we always start with samples and we have a pretty strict like process for that sort of stuff. We're happy doing like a couple of rounds of samples, like all paid to make sure that it's worth their time, it's worth ours. And then we'll just kind of work them into a topic that we feel like is easier compared to some other clients. And if that goes fine, like we'll send it to the client, see what they think of it, go from there. If for some reason just totally flop, we'll just bring in a writer who's already kind of on our roster to complete it. But like if it comes to a different client where it's like more backlink service, we might just kind of see like, okay, we'll do a small test, like build 2 or 3 links for us and just kind of see like what the quality of these links are. So we can kind of gauge that relationship. And if those links come back and they're like, yeah, these are legit, they didn't come back to us with like 24 hours and like, hey, the links are built. It's like, that's kind of a red flag. So just kind of making sure that like from an SEO point of view, like if I was doing this myself and kind of taking a different approach, like how would I want to be on the receiving end? Because like Connor and Nate and I always say, it's like we're entrepreneurs first. It's like we kind of know what it's like to be on the other side, but like right now we're just different. It's just an agency perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you mentioned, you're bringing in these like white label partners as you're growing your agency. You also have a roster of, writers and all that kind of stuff. You guys been in business a little over a year. So talk to me about what kind of challenges you guys have faced. Like, is there stuff that has happened as you're growing the agency? Like from your own background, as you're getting into this, like, oh, I wasn't expecting this, this problem to pop up. What are some of those that have happened over the year?
Yeah, none. It's been a great journey and everything's been really easy. I'm kidding.
That is the most relaxed, the most chill agency owner
Yeah,
response.
it's fine.
You should be having this call, lifestyle laptop on a beach right now.
I wish. No, the biggest thing is just client communication. I think that, we definitely figured out early what was like the 80/20 approach to that. So like we heard from a lot of people that we talked to before we started, especially like our beta clients, that some of the reasons that people left their past or prior agency was because communication sucked. Like they're like, I haven't heard from them in 2 months. I don't know what they're doing. I don't have any updates. Like this sucks. And so we're like, great, we're gonna over communicate. We're gonna get ahead of all communication. Just making sure that like I don't care if you feel like I'm bugging you. You can always tell me to like, hey, reel it back in. Like, I don't need as many emails, but I'm always gonna be someone who's like getting ahead of things before they come up. So like for that reason, with our kind of like communication cadence, we send out a weekly email, really short, 2 or 3 bullet points on what content updates were happening that week, what was published, 2 or 3 bullet points on like weekly wins that we're seeing growth wise, analytics wise, and then like some DIY tip of the week that someone can like take on, whether it's like UX related, CRO related, like backlink related, like whatever that is. They can read it without scrolling down. They just know that it's like same time every week we're in their inbox. They don't have to reply, but like, this is what's going on. That's worked really well, just so people know.
That's one to one, right? Not a broadcast. So you're saying that's like personalized to each client, right?
Correct. Yeah, it comes from my email straight from me. It's just like bullet point screenshots straight up. That took us a while to master just because like figuring out what the structure was, like all that sort of stuff. I already had Airtable built out from my first company. So I just pulled all of that over. It was literally the exact replica of the system that we use for that. And then we just put a client facing role on it. So like we have viewable, you know, front facing views for clients to see where the content is in the process, like what status it is, like if they want to check in, and then just doing more frequent like check-ins with content. Like we learned early on that you don't want to publish 20 articles without the client checking the first few. Like we had
What is
that was a really hard lesson to learn. It's like you publish all 20 and they're like, "Hey, we're not happy with any of these. Can you unpublish all 20?" And it's like, "Yeah, would love to." So, I mean, just like I don't know, just little stuff like that where it's like we have to touch the stove to know it's hot, and that's just part of the process. But like those hard conversations and those hard lessons are what make us so dialed in today. So
that makes sense. I've always heard in general, and I do feel this is true, that you could be like a bad 7 out of 10 agency, but keep a client longer than a 10 out of 10 agency if you just over communicate, right? Like just I'm here, and like, oh, you're sucking, but at least you're talking to me. You're better than the last guy. At least I know what's going on. So there's a lot of truth to the communication. Do you do like monthly calls with the client too, or what's the kind of cadence there? Do you do any calls with them?
yeah, so we do one quarterly call unless there's like something that's pop up and they need
One
to.
quarterly call.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that was also something that we really tried to stick to early in and like how we were planning Trio was that calls are a waste of time, and if it can be solved over email, we'll solve over email. So like we're same day 24-hour response over email no matter what it is, but I'm not going to hop on a call for you to ask me like some random question that could have been answered in 2 seconds. So for that reason, we do one call every 90 days. And that was the other thing too that really kind of like helped us figure out the process was we didn't know what the good structure for cadence was, but in terms of like creating a content calendar. So like if we were going to create, a roadmap of like, here's your 12 months worth of topics, clients kind of get worried about the fact that like they're mentally committing to 12 months of services. But if you do it for 1 month, then you have to check in every month. So it's like, it's easier. What we found is that if you go with 90-day sprints and not using the terminology of quarterly, because quarterly is such like a broad, big gap in
And it sounds long too,
sounds
right?
really
Versus
long.
a sprint.
But if you say a
Yeah.
90-day sprint, it's the same exact time, and clients look at it as like, oh, that's easy. I can commit to 90 days. So you kind of
It's
go with
funny how
that
that works.
mentality.
Power generating.
Yeah, exactly. So we do that. We check in every 90 days with an updated strategy of what we want to tackle. And then we go over analytics from the last 90 days to kind of just like see what's going on, hear about any adjustments maybe on their side of things that we have to be looped in on. And then we pretty much just like lock it in and go from there.
That's interesting. Are clients pretty receptive to 90 days? Because what I've heard from most of my friends, or at least what they try to do, is get with the client once a month because they're afraid if they don't talk to them like once a month on the phone, then they might churn. I know from my personal experience, like I had an agency, they wanted to meet weekly. Like, man, this is like
That's
way too
rough.
much, guys. Like, let's chill out here a bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
so if you have pushback on that with clients, like being extra needy, or they love it.
I think that they kind of like it. We've had a couple of clients where they're like, "Hey, can we have calls?" And we just set the expectation up front, like, "Hey, we don't do that, but like, if you ever feel like you're not getting the service you need from our communication rhythms, then like we'll happily adjust. But like, just let us test the waters first because I'm still sending them 4 emails a month with all the updates they need. If they have one-off questions, I'm responding within 24 hours, or someone from our team is. And then on top of that, we meet every 90 days. So it's like there actually is kind of in like a backwards way, like an overabundance of communication, but having a monthly call is usually not needed. We're kind of in talks with like a new client that they were like, this is a requirement for us. Like we need to have a once a month call. We'd like to have it bi-monthly if we can. And we're like, is that really a make it or break it for you guys? If we can like maybe do 1 month call and then maybe after that, maybe work into like a lesser call schedule. And they're like, sure. Like I think that's kind of the big thing too, is just like people are flexible if you just ask them. And it's like they're not gonna walk away from the entire sale of the relationship because you want to have less calls or fewer calls. So
Yeah, I find calls, a lot of meetings can be cut down or made redundant. So I'm all with you on that. I'm glad you're doing it because I just do see a lot of my agency owners. I think what stresses them out sometimes is just like they want to over communicate and do a good job with the client. But like if you do it by via call, that's so much more time. And
yeah.
you got like 30, 40 clients, like, whoa, like this is a lot of calls you're doing every month. So I think that's smart to set it up that way. What does your org look like, your organization? So you have your content writers, you have your white label partners. Do you have like account managers? Have you guys reached that point? Is that kind of like the trajectory, or how are you guys designing the hierarchy of the agency?
Yeah, so we're almost there. We have about 10 full-time team members right now. We have split between a full-time strategist and a part-time strategist. And then we have an uploader and a quality check uploader who kind of works in sync with that person. And then we also have an image person. So like the uploads team in general is 3 people. Strategists are 2 people. And then the content kind of management side of things, we have a lead content manager, a lead editor, and a secondary editor who kind of like supports on that side of things. And then we have someone to assist with like an outlines manager, someone who's kind of like a creating outlines. And some of those other people that I mentioned are also like pulled into outlines throughout that process, but like one person to kind of like make sure that like schedules adhered to and like we're on track and kind of project management side of things. And then yeah, writers are like a whole different game. We have 5 full-time writers who are on the team, and then like probably about 8 to 10 contractors who are like more ad hoc, whether it's like niche dependent or just like fill over to meet deadlines and stuff like that.
Interesting. Moving back into more of the SEO side of things, like it's been a pretty tumultuous last couple of years, at least in certain like realms of the SEO world, right? So do you think that SEO is still enough for most companies who just like I'm only doing SEO, or would you recommend even as an SEO agency owner to like you should have a more omni-channel approach? What are you seeing right now with your clients?
Yeah, I think the people who have the most success nowadays with their marketing strategies are definitely exploring a few different avenues. I'd say that like it's probably an 80-20 where you don't have to have every single social media under the sun. Like figure out where your avatar ideal customer is living, double down in that front. I think if you're going after an SEO strategy, like it makes sense to also have a newsletter strategy. So those two can work hand in hand. You can like really reinforce the ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, classic SEO answer of like, yeah, it depends per brand, but
Every day in the SEO Facebook groups, I see that answer. That's the mark of a true SEO expert right there.
depends. But yeah, no, I definitely think that, especially like in the age of personal branding too, that we're kind of moving forward with. Like, I totally am all for like CEOs having a presence on LinkedIn and like creating content on LinkedIn and not just like the total typical like weird one-off posts about like how well the company's doing. It's like no, like give people like a personal touch. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's heading in that direction, especially with like how we've seen it already go. And it's like it's only going to get reinforced from here on out.
Yeah, I tend to agree, though I am of two minds of the personal branding thing. I think on one hand, it is very powerful. And especially if you're in the B2B world, I think it makes a lot of sense. I was at a conference in Cyprus and I had a disagreement with one of the other speakers on there about this because one of the audience members asked me, like, how would they go about building a personal brand? I don't really have one. I have like a tiny one, right? I told him, I go, like, well, it depends. Like, I think the biggest companies don't have one. Like, who's the personal brand of IBM, Like,
Yeah.
so I'm of two minds of personal brand, though I definitely see how it helps, especially in the B2B world. Moving into everything that we're seeing with Google right now, like a lot of people have been affected pretty negatively. Some people are seeing gains, like a lot of my friends in the e-commerce world are, on fire a bit. Like it's kind of a golden era for e-commerce SEO at the moment. But what would be your advice? Like what's like the best practices to kind of protect yourself? I mean, you obviously can't protect yourself 100%, but like shield yourself somewhat from like the negative algorithm updates. So do you have any advice for someone like that?
Yeah, they just immediately jump to like playing by the book. Connor and I always joke that like we do boring SEO. So when clients come to us and they're like, "Hey, what are you guys like testing in terms of this and like doing this sort of stuff?" And we're like, "We just do everything like straight up as it should, and it's going to be probably a slower process. Or we're not going to pump out ChatGPT articles and give you 100 articles in 20 days. It's like no, we write 7 articles per month. They're take longer. They're perfect. Like they really high quality, but that's how you play the game in SEO. I think everyone's trying to shave off time in SEO, but really like that's not the strategy. Like the strategy is to build something that will last for years. And if you're thinking in months and weeks, like you're already upside down from the get go. So
Well, I can tell you don't know anything about AI, man. You're supposed to do 600 articles in a minute. That's what a real SEO does. All right, Stephen.
no
What is going
headings,
on?
just all body text and images throughout, right?
And all mid-journey AI images where it misread what you were trying to create.
And the URLs should match the title. Is that right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And you should repeat the keyword at least 50 times in the title. But yeah, we'll get into AI here in a second. But I think that in general is good advice. And like the boring SEO part, like I've sold a lot of SEO businesses, as you know, at Empire Flippers, right? And like our main traffic source is SEO. Like, and I've helped grow that SEO a lot over the years. But if you look at someone like me versus I'm sure like you back in your affiliate days, the SEO I do is way simpler than anything my affiliate friends do because like they're doing like semantic contacts, like they're basically creating an entire technical language as a subset of English at this point with all their different like anchor text ratios, all this stuff, right? Versus me at Empire Flippers, like I go onto people's podcasts, which is a way to double like backlink building. We have a YouTube channel, we post on our blog, and we have an email newsletter. If you're building a real brand, I feel like SEO is so much easier, but to your point, much more boring as
Yeah.
well in terms of like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that like, I was just talking to someone on LinkedIn recently and they're like, how would you spruce up this thing? And I'm like, there's really only so many ways to skin a cat in SEO. It's like, do you have good heading structures? Do you have internal links? Do you have like your nav and footer? Like basically rambling off like the top 10 commandments of SEO. And they're like, well, yeah, I have that. Like, what's next? And I'm like, wait, just be patient. Like, that's the last step. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And it's like, that's just like, I don't know, that's the game of delayed gratification when it comes to SEO. But when it works really well. And I think like the people who have had that success in SEO preach by that because they're like, yeah, we have tons of traffic. We don't pay for it. Like we put in a lot of upfront work and like it's just been kind of brewing in the background. And people are like, nah, that's a myth. Like, man, that sounds like magic. That doesn't work.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, man. I was going to ask you a question on that. It slipped my mind. Oh, maybe it'll come back to me. But I did want to move into AI a little bit, which is an unavoidable topic if you're in marketing at the moment, right? I think I have a feeling of where you lean on it. But talk to me about what you think ChatGPT is doing to search and what Google's doing to search, right? Because they have AI overviews. Like I remember in 2.5 years ago or so when ChatGPT first launched, all the SEO is like, "Oh, ChatGPT is going to kill Google," and my initial response is like, "No, Google is going to kill Google because they're going to have this knee jerk reaction to ChatGPT." And I do feel like that prediction has kind of played out. So, little Nostradamus over here. But what is your feeling on the environment with like how is AI really affecting search?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think there's a couple different things to unpack there. I'll try and be concise. But like the main thing is like, yeah, I totally agree. Google's killing Google. Like between the generative AI and then you have the shopping results and then you have like the new like recommended section. People also ask when you have ads, and it's like organic is like 50 thumb swipes on mobile before you even get to like an organic result. So like from that side of things, like the experience is totally skewed. From like a ChatGPT, killing SEOs or anything, I also don't think that's true, at least in the next 10 years. Like I always just think back to like, think about like credit cards, like when those came out, it's like everyone's like, that won't work. And it's like, okay, now people are using Apple Pay. It's like, it's just
Yeah.
the evolution. Like it will happen probably, but until like my aunt knows what ChatGPT is, like I'm not really worried about it. And I think just kind of like how those two are blended, there's a time and a place for how generative AI works well with Google. Like recipes. I think every recipe site deserves to get burned. Like I can't stand the fact that I have to read 3,000 words of how you baked cookies with your grandma before I get to the recipe. It's like, just give me the recipe. Those sort of things are perfect for generative AI. But, if we're doing a 2,000 word blog on biotech valuations for our client, like that's probably not a generative search result. So time and a place, intent matters a lot. Like there's just so much to unpack there, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how things develop.
I remember what I was going to say now because of the recipe thing. I was going to say, like, yeah, SEO, I always joke, like, how you do it is just content and backlinks. And I specifically did not say high quality content because only you need high quality content if you intend to make money. Like, you actually want to convert someone, right?
Yeah,
Like, I'm sure you're friends with people who have done it before, like, rank just like lorem ipsum content for like random keywords, right? Like, clearly Google doesn't care. Like, the recipe thing brought it back. It's like, why would anyone care about this person's like 80-year-old grandma and their 3 year journey of how they learned together to make potato salad? Like,
horrible.
this is not written for the human, the searcher, right?
Yeah. And then couple that with like a pop-up and then like a top-down ad. And it's like the only viewable content is like a millimeter of four words. And I'm like, this is
Image of
unusable.
the grandma's eye with the potato salad. I'm like, oh
So
god,
true. The perfect
what
meme.
is this place like that?
Oh my God. So yeah, that's
Do you think we'll see? And by the way, I agree with you on Google search. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's like you brought up credit cards, and a lot of people thought credit cards would kill physical cash, but and yet we still have ATM machines, right? My father, he still reads the yellow pages for like finding people, right? But he does have ChatGPT, but luckily he struggles to unlock his phone. Like he's still firmly into the yellow pages world, and I feel like even if ChatGPT or something like it consumes what is search today, then there's still going to be tons of people using Google, if not just Google Maps at the very least. So is that kind of your feeling on it too? Like, yeah, it is going down, but like, look, there's going to be this very strong user base still.
yeah, I kind of like visualize it as like it contracts and expands and contracts, expands. And I think like that's gonna be the natural evolution of how the product of AI is incorporated into things. Like there's gonna be a time when like Apple obviously is already releasing iPhones that have AI built into them. So like
The Apple intelligence didn't go too well.
exact it's like you have to rely on other products that people are already ingrained with and kind of have trust and kind of like a zero mindset of how to interact with the original product. And then AI is just layered on top of that and then becomes normalized. But yeah, kind of like to the ChatGPT thing, I think that people are still so inexperienced with how to use it. Like I had a advantage, I think, because I was so already in tuned with creating SOPs for the first company that when I came
Mm.
to ChatGPT, I was like, oh, I'm just making SOPs and asking it to do something. And like that's how the process goes. But if you ask someone else to use ChatGPT, they're like, what do I do? How do I ask it? Like, what do I do? And it's like we saw the same thing with Google. Like people don't really know how to use Google. They're like, how to bake cake. It's like you can just say like, teach me how to bake a cake. Like something like that where it's a little bit more advanced. So yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see that side of things develop because we're still pretty early in that side of the usability sense.
There is a certain level of irony there that Google is kind of dumber now with the AI because like you used to just like
Oh,
type
it's
in a string
awful.
of words that make no sense, and now it's telling you like, hey, yeah, you should put cyanide in those cupcakes. Great for your apps. Like, wait, what? What are you telling me to do here? This doesn't sound right.
Looks like I have to return all my cyanide now. Thanks.
Right. They lied to me. I thought the site I was going to make a great cupcake. Okay, so you talked about like human created content, and I tend to agree with you. I think there is a place for AI generated content, but I do feel like so many SEOs just focus on the content aspect of AI. So I'd like to ask this question out to my SEO friends: like, are you using AI right now in your business in any way that's not content related?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a tool, and that's kind of like how we've always viewed it. I still use ChatGPT daily for like data analysis, or if I'm like working in large data sets, and I'm like, I know that there's probably some easy formula that I just don't know about. Like, give me a formula that probably has like 50 commas and apostrophes, but like I'll never know how to write that correctly. Like, that's a great use of it. Like even creating brand briefs is another great kind of thing that we've been able to leverage where the client gives us an overabundant of information that we have to figure out to summarize for our writers to learn how to master their brand. And they give us like a 20-page internal marketing document. And I'm like, I bet your team didn't read this. Like, you think that we can like master this doc? It's like, okay, figure out how to optimize and solve information for me. So it's just more about like how to figure out the best tips and tricks to save time and make things more efficient. But I don't think the AI is like a direct replacement for things as of yet.
I feel much the same. I make it akin to Photoshop, like if you give me Photoshop, I can make something okay, but I'm no master. You give it to someone who actually knows how to use the tools, like,
Oh yeah,
whoa, this is like a work of art, it's like totally different. It's funny you mentioned the brand guidelines. When I first joined up with EF, I was the blogger. I was the content manager, right? And I remember specifically, following our own brand guidelines that our editing team had made that I was introduced to. They started talking to me like, this isn't following the guidelines. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's literally in the guidelines. Like, you wrote this. So yeah, most people are not even paying attention to it, even if they create it. It's just
yeah,
kind of like meetings. A lot of times they're pointless if they're not being used, right?
yeah.
That makes sense to me. In terms of, I want to get into the rapid fire section, but before we get into the rapid fire section, just like general thoughts on SEO, how do you recommend people to kind of meet these different challenges with the rise of zero click, the rise of AI overviews, to still stay ahead and still be getting good quality traffic from Google? What would be your recommendation for them?
I think the main thing is like getting really good at understanding the nuances of keyword research and how that ties into a larger content strategy. So, like for example, we'll have clients come through and we'll show them, the 5 topics, which are always like the primary keywords from a strategy, and they have no idea that we're going to write an article, and that article has the potential to land an additional 500 or 1,000 keywords within that article. So they're like, so you're adding 5 keywords to my site per month? Like, what am I paying you for? So it's like there's just so many nuances to SEO, and that's kind of something that I've also kind of learned through that transition of working with clients is that like you have to explain everything at a 7th or 5th grade level because it's like it's just dense and like that's just how it is. So I think that people who are looking at it is like if you spend the time and energy and do it correctly to build a site correctly, like your site will rank for an overabundance of keywords. Obviously, not all of them are the ideal keyword, but like you cast a wide net and like, 50 to 80% of those are going to kind of create doors to your website that you can then like start to pull different levers and kind of optimize in different ways with lead magnets or getting them into your ecosystem, like whatever that looks like. So I think just kind of like taking a step back and thinking, what is the goal of growing a organic traffic channel? And then figuring out once you have the traffic, it's like, hey, that's the hard part. Like now the fun begins. Like, how do we start tinkering with it to kind of bring it all to life?
Yeah, I agree. All right, my man. Are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
Are you very ready or just like ready?
I'm semi ready. My heart rate just spiked, so I think I'm ready.
I'll send you some Vietnamese coffee so you go all the way into heart attack mode from the.
Start levitating. That's perfect. Yeah.
All right, 3 quick questions or 3 quick answers. The first question for you is, what do you believe is the best hidden growth opportunities in SEO today?
Podcasts. I think that if people who are in a brand position to do podcasts and be more guests on them, like it just reinforces your off-page SEO. You get backlinks out of it 9 times out of 10. You create great connections. Like all of that will bake in. You can also reinforce the content into future content, like repurposing it. Like it's kind of a slept-on strategy from the authority kind of sense of what people consider an SEO.
Dude, I 100% agree with that. No one ever really talks about that. And that's exactly how I started building, like, my quote unquote personal brand, because I was originally just doing guest posting for Empire Flippers. And eventually I realized, like, man, this is way easier to just talk and I get more backlinks out of it. So that's how I like started appearing on people's podcasts, is how it all like kind of snowballed for me. So I agree 100% with that.
Yeah.
What tools or resources can people use to improve their SEO?
I'm an Ahrefs diehard. I think that like the tool is
My
great.
man himself.
Yeah, I think the tool's great. Their blog is great. Like they have a bunch of free resources available. I've obviously know it's expensive, but I think that if you're looking at SEO seriously, like it's worth an investment to like get your hands dirty, learn some stuff, apply what you're learning in the blog or the resource center to the actual tool itself, and just like live in the Ahrefs life of what it can offer.
I don't know if you know Tim at all, but you should tell him after this podcast, like when it goes live, like message him on LinkedIn, like, hey, I just got done doing a podcast with your mascot because I am the
Really?
official Ahrefs mascot. I got them to name their mascot after me, and I
Oh my
told Tim
god,
if he sends me proof in Slack, I will promote their new mascot to our email
that's
newsletter. So I
amazing.
joked about the Empire One.
That's amazing. No, I've been trying to get connected with someone at Ahrefs. I'm like, you don't even understand like how much like I will forever free promo you guys because I love Ahrefs so much. Like I'd love to meet their team, but that's hilarious.
He's super cool. Tim's a great guy. It's funny, they have get now haunted me with that mascot thing a bit because I just appeared in Kyle Roof's Internet Marketing Gold board game that he had, right? He made me
Oh
into a
yeah,
character.
nice.
And I think he got inspired by the Ahrefs mascot, I think, because he just made me like this massive ginger. Like,
Oh
guys,
my god, that's
I have like dirty
hilarious.
blonde hair. Yeah, I do. Like, I have a little bit of red hair, but I look like this crazy Irishman in the
That's
board game
good.
because of this. So I guess karma got me in the end. But yeah, I love Ahrefs. Been a big supporter of them and the great team over there. All right, last question, hardest question. What has been your funniest moment working in the SEO industry?
Yeah, so one of my first sites that I had, I think it was that barbecue site that I mentioned that I kind of like use as my playground to learn on. I learned disable search engines from crawling the site button means in WordPress. And I didn't know that like I just essentially like asked Google never to crawl my site. It's like I think the button in the WordPress setting is like discourage search engines from crawling your site. And I like clicked that box and I was like 6 months passed of like me creating content, like I was going hard on SEO and like nothing happened, obviously. And I brought it to my friend. I'm like, dude, I don't know what's going on. Like, I've done everything by the book. Like, please fix my site. And he's like, click. He's like, yeah, that's not something you want to click. And I was like, I see. Lesson learned. So, yeah, you got to touch the stove to know it's hot. But damn, yeah, that was a fun one. It was like 6 months of my like first site.
You're like a challenge speed runner. Like, just turn Google SEO into like 10 out of 10 hard mode,
It
like
was. I mean,
make
yeah,
it
it's
absolutely impossible.
impossible mode. Yeah. So glad it was my first site and something to learn from day one, but it's always a fun one.
I feel like every SEO has their day in the accidental no indexing of their own website. Like it happened to us at EF not that long ago. We made our listing pages no index because we
Oh
didn't want to
no.
cover up our crawl budget
Yeah.
basically. But it accidentally made the entire website that. Like, what is going on with our traffic? What is happening here? Luckily, we were able to fix it like super quick. But like we saw this dip. Like this seems very unnatural. So yeah, it's just it was a naive like developer mistake basically. He
Yeah.
didn't understand the nuance of what he was doing on that part, but we fixed it quick.
It
Cool,
happens.
man. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you said, yeah, it happens. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. It's classic marketer life mistake that will happen. Well, man, I really enjoyed this conversation. So for anyone that wants to, connect with you personally or maybe check out Trio SEO as well, where do you tend to hang out with? Like where can they go to pick your brain?
Yeah, just LinkedIn, super active on there, post daily. You can just Google my name, LinkedIn or Trio SEO, any one of those sorts. You can kind of go down the rabbit hole, whichever way you want to find us. But yeah, TrioSEO.com and find me one way or another.
Awesome, man. We'll put all those links down below. So if anyone wants to check out the work that Steven's doing, go check out those links, send him a message, see if we can't introduce him to Tim Solos. Maybe we get a second mascot at Ahrefs named after you.
Love it. Can't wait. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, man. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it got you inspired at all the different things that are happening in this industry. And of course, if you just want to buy a highly profitable business, you can always go to empireflippers.com/marketplace, or maybe you want to make an exit of your highly profitable business, and you could go to empireflippers.com/sell your site. I've been your host, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review, give us a like, a follow, share it across social media. Talk to you all soon. See you on the next episode.